Hello, dream catchers, and welcome to another exciting day in the Haven. We are in the Haven Corner at the 2018 National Book Club Conference, and with me is Bernice McFadden. I am so excited to have been able to get her to come on with us and to talk a bit about her passion, her process, and her projects. But before we get into that, I'd like to know, with the NBCC, how are things going? Is it what you expected it would be, and is it important to attend these as an author?
Oh, it's absolutely important, and it's always wonderful. It's always fabulous. I'm always happy that Curtis invites me back whenever I have a book coming out. It's like it's not just book club. It's like a family reunion because you get to see these people time and time again. Not only do you run into readers here, other festivals, and then this is like the gathering point because it's for the most part, it's all people of color, and so we have a different type of vibe between us, and it's like homecoming. Yeah.
That's great. And so, book clubs are important for authors, but I've been hearing from a lot of the book club participants or members that they really get a lot out of it because it's a chance for them to speak with their authors about characters, about books, to even share some of the things that they like and dislike about the book. Now, so how does that feel from?
Listen, I'm fine with that. And I'm happy to be able to physically meet my readers. We don't all, people in different genres, they don't always get the opportunity to meet the people who are not just keeping their lights on. You know what I'm saying? Who are like offering and giving energy to the art because without them, right, I would just be sitting in my little office writing, stories for myself. So it's really a wonderful experience, and I enjoy the feedback. Um, I write for myself first, and I write for them second. So it's fine. It all melds together, and it works. It works.
Okay, so you started a little bit on process, but before we go to process, I want to talk about your passion for writing. Like, what was the genesis of your writing journey?
Okay, well, I started reading very young. I think my mother taught me to read when I was like 4 or 5, and I fell in love with books because I was a shy child. And a lot of us authors are introverts, and so I was very happy to stay home and just read my books. My mother had to throw me outside to play, and probably around 9, I started writing little short stories, and I decided at that point that I enjoyed storytelling and that I wanted to grow up and become a writer. The issue was at that time, with talking about early 70s, I was not familiar with writers who looked like me, so I didn't think it was possible. And I want to say this particular NBCC is important to me because Alice Walker was the first black woman that I read. Color Purple was the first book by a person of color that I read. And I was like, I can do this because there's someone who looks like me who's doing it. Hmm. Yeah.
So, in seeing her, that inspired you to write, and you've been writing for decades. And have you written in more than one genre?
Yes, so I write under Bernice L. McFadden, and I've also written under Geneva Holiday. And that's my pseudonym for my humorous erotica. So they're very different. One is cerebral, the other is just lots of fun and just, whatever it is I want to put down as crazy as I can get, I could throw that on the page and not really think any more about it. Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't know about the erotica
Holiday.
Geneva Holiday. I will be picking up that book with two L's. Okay, and so the cerebral. I'm used to that when you're writing as Bernice, and so what would you say was your greatest accomplishment as a writer? I mean, you've had many because NAACP Image Award. I mean, you've won so many awards and you've been honored for your writing. But what would you say? And it may not even be an award. I mean, yeah, just your greatest.
Making my mother proud. That's it. Yeah. I mean, the awards, of course, it's nice, it's lovely. But when my mother goes, "Oh, I really enjoyed that. Oh, I'm so happy for you." I'm like, I light up. We all want to make our parents proud.
Yeah, and you probably have brag. She has bragging. I mean, she's bragging all over the place about you and all of the great things that you've done. So that's awesome. That's cool. Okay, so let's talk a bit about your process. So you said that you write for yourself, and then you write for. Is that for both? Geneva and okay. So let's talk a bit about that process and how does it work for you?
So when I say I write for myself, it's because I have questions, right? And every book I've written has come from a question. And I need answers. And I enjoy research. And so I go down not one rabbit hole, but 50 rabbit holes in order to find an answer to this question that I have. And often one question leads to another and then leads to 20. And so that's my process. That's how a book comes into being for me because I have a question and or there's a mystery and often it has to do with history, and I need to solve it for myself. And so that's why I say I write for myself. I'm happy that people read me, but it's really for me.
Just so you're not confused about that. Okay, so what is your technical process? Do you outline? Do you plot it out? Um, b- eh, okay.
No,
None of that.
none of that. None of that. I often say it's a spiritual event for me, writing. Um, So I have the question, I start looking for the answers, and as I'm looking, characters start to form. They just come and they tell me stories. Whatever they tell me, whatever they show me, I put it down on paper. And it's not linear. It's like Mary comes today, we're going to tell Mary's story. Fred appears, oh, there's Fred. Doesn't have anything to do with Mary. Maybe later on we'll find this out. Maybe we'll find out that they're connected. And that's how it works for me. So it's me communing with my ancestors.
Wow. Okay, I need to take that in a little bit. Okay. So this is great because I've had a lot of authors on the show. Connie Briscoe, Marita Golden, Victoria last week, Victoria Christopher Murray, and this is the first time that I've heard. And this is great because there isn't one right or wrong way to do it. It's what works for the author. So thank you so much. I love that. I love that. So tell us about your latest book and when does it come out?
Okay, Praise Song for the Butterflies will be published August 28th. It's about ritual servitude in West Africa. It's basically slavery under the guise of religion. We know about that. We've experienced that here in the States. I was first introduced to the practice in 2007. National Book Club Conference actually went to Ghana. So I was there with, it was about 60 of us. And we did a lot of things. We went to a lot of places. But it wasn't until we were on the way back that two of the members said, "Oh, Bernice, did you get to go to XYZ Rehabilitation Center?" And I said, "No." Well, this is they take in the Trokosi women. And I was like, "What is this? What are you telling me about?" So they explained it to me. And of course, then you should write a book about that. But that's not my process. You can't tell me what to write about. And I said, yeah. And so I went home and I started researching. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is fascinating. And how come I did not know about this? How come people aren't up in arms about this? And I sat down and I wrote the book.
So what kind of research does one do to, or yeah, how did you engage in the writing of it?
Well, it starts with Google. Right? So so I Google it, and there's not a whole lot of information. But then I came across a video. An anchor woman from CNN had gone to Ghana back in the 80s or early 90s and interviewed some of these Trokosi and the fetish priests. These are the men who run the shrines. And so one little girl, she was crying, and so the anchor woman said to the fetish priest, well, clearly she doesn't want to be here. She's in tears. She's crying. And he goes, well, she's crying of happiness. And that just blew me away. And it resonated with me because this is not, you know, unlike what American slavery was about. They take these young girls at as young as 3 or 4. They bring them in. They put them in the fields to work. Um, they're sexually molested, and they stay there until they die. They're never returned home. If they do escape to go home, the family turns them away. It's
So
heartbreaking.
it is, and that's a very, very heavy subject. How long did it take to write?
So the first, no, let me just say this: the early draft, probably about a year, and I actually tested it out. I self-published it and just put it out digitally, and just wanted to see what people thought about it. People loved it. And so years later, so we're talking, I did that maybe like 2008, and we're in 2018. So 10 years later, my publisher was like, "Yeah, let's send it out to the world and see what happens."
So is that a timing thing as far as what's going on in the world that it made sense to put it out now, or?
That's not what was in my head. I kept reading the reviews because it was active up until maybe 3 years ago, and I just took it to him. I was like, I just think that let me rework it. It was, yeah, yeah. I said, right. I said, people are enjoying this, and I knew I needed to rework it. Um, it's set the current book is set in a fictional African country. This way, I could have creative license to do and say what I really want to do and say, and I, even the early copies that went out, people love the book. They love the character. They love the story. They're horrified by it, and I hope that this novel brings exposure to what's happening there. Now, obviously, we have to be very careful about condemning traditions that have nothing to do with us. But if we can educate the people who are condoning it and say, listen, you can't center yourself in this narrative. This is a child. This needs to come to an end. That's what I hope will happen with this book.
So there's some social justice that is part of that story. How has your light as a writer contributed to bringing the message that this is something that needs to be looked at and addressed?
I think that it is very difficult not to be an activist in this era. You have to have your head in the sand. You have to have your heart in a box, not to contribute in some small way, no matter how tiny. And so this is my contribution. This is now I may not be out there marching. I can write a check and I can write a book. And so, yeah, yes, I see myself as a social activist.
And so, with that, with the release of the book in August, the official release of the book, and because you're Bernice McFadden, there will, of course, be people that will come to you and perhaps see you in the way of being that social voice of consciousness. And of course, you'll step to the plate.
Yes, as much as I can. I mean, that's like it's it's um, it's huge, and I don't know. Again, I feel like I've done this, and I'm the behind the scenes person. So I applaud those men and women that are out there on the front lines. I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't know if I am that courageous, but I am courageous on the page. Yeah.
Okay, so do you have any? Well, you do. You have some projects in the horizon. Can we talk about those?
Yeah, I mean, really, I'm working on a memoir. It's still in its infancy. I don't know where it's going. I think I just need to decompress from this book because literally I was still working on the novel in April. So right. It's only so maybe by the end of the year I can like completely commit to this memoir. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so you recently self-published a portion of the book that we're talking about, the butterflies.
No, what happened was it was self-published under the title My Name is Butterfly back in 2008. So the story, some parts of the story remain in this recent novel, but a lot of it has changed. The character names have changed. So once I changed the characters' names, the characters changed. So there are people who read the original and they're curious about the reboot. Could we call it a reboot? Okay. Yeah, so they're curious about it, and I think it's a much better novel. Um, because I had time to really sit and think, and there's more information available about Tricosi now. The information, like, every year more stuff has been put online, and so that helped.
Okay. And so, with the success of the first piece of the novel, and I know that you changed the names and all of that, but the spirit of the story is still there, still the same. Um, what is it that you feel readers of this generation are going to glean from the message that you are producing in this novel?
I think that they are going to see a lot of America in this novel, because slavery is slavery, no matter if it happens here, no matter if it happens in West Africa, no matter if it happened in 1840, no matter if it's happening in 2018. And I think that it's going to be shocking for them, because who thinks that slavery exists now? But it does globally. It's still going on. I think it's going to make people angry, which is, I want that emotional reaction, because some of us need to get angry in order to react, to do something. And so, like I said earlier, I hope that, people will mobilize, not just here on this continent, but over in Africa as well, and say, okay, you know what, enough of this. We're killing our future. When we enslave our children, we're killing our future. And I think that's the perfect way to look at it.
Okay, so a couple of author revealing
Oh,
questions because people know, I mean, they read your work, but just a couple of things, questions to just get to know you, the author, better. Who are you reading now?
who am I reading now? Oh Lord. Okay, because I read a few things at a time, and I listen. I listen to a lot of books. Yes. So, Jacqueline Woodson, Eula Bliss, um, and there's another one that I'm rereading. I'm always reading Toni Morrison. I'm always reading Toni Morrison. So I am now yet for the 100th time, Song of Solomon, because I just
Do you find that you pick up different things, new things
yes.
every time you read it? Yeah.
And that's why I continue to reread. And I think Toni has an incredible sense of humor that I don't think people pick up on. And then, the new writers. I'm actually listening for the second time to Here Comes the Sun by Nicole Dennis Ben. She has a new one coming out next year, Patsy, I believe. I recently finished, I'm not even going to remember the name of this. The author's name is Lady Hubbard. She won a fabulous award last year, and I'm sorry I can't remember the name of the book. Um,
I'm sure
yeah,
people are Googling her name
yeah,
right
yeah.
now. They're on Amazon and find her book.
The Talented Ribkins. That's the name of the book. Yes. So I think that's about it. Yeah. Yeah.
So you talked about your greatest accomplishment, that being your mom, and just the smile that you bring to her face whenever you accomplish anything. What are some of the challenges that you've faced as an author?
Oh my goodness. Well, just trying to garner that recognition, and when you're dealing with the big publishers, I'm with a small press. It's a very different experience. But the first 8 years of my career, 8, 10 years of my career, I was with a major house, and I'm sorry to say, they really don't give the same attention to writers of color that they do to white writers. They just
Do you think that's true even now?
Absolutely.
We've gotten the definitive word from Ms. McFadden.
Yes, absolutely. Don't let, like, the three or four that you're seeing cloud the reality of it. Um, it's still a struggle. Listen, we have only, publishing is made up of what, 4% black folk? That's it. 2% at the bottom, 2% at the top.
You mean at the publishing
At the
houses?
publishing houses. Editors and any publicists, very small percentage. And I think that black women, I think we read the most in the country. We're buying the most books. So it's not reflective of the audience. So yeah, it's still a big problem.
Okay, so that's a challenge then that you see just in the industry in general.
Because if you're trying to sell a book, and you bring it into, an editor who is 30 years old, white, and out of whatever MFA program she came out of, and she did not study any novels, poetry written by people of color. She can't wrap her mind around the story. And so she's just coming from one perspective. And in her mind, she's saying, this is the American audience does not want this. I still get that. I got that for Praise Song for the Butterflies. This is going to be a hard sell for the American audience. And we understand as black people, when they say American, they mean white. So you're just completely dismissing people of color as readers.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I'm sure our dream catchers are really going to be thankful for that information. Okay, so what advice would you give to aspiring writers?
Well, you no longer, as an aspiring writer, are, you're not shackled to traditional publishing. You can self-publish and self-publish well and make your money and find your audience and be happy. If you feel like you need to be with one of the big six or, even one of the independents, that's fine. But understand that you still have to do a lot of work. You can't completely depend on them because it's your book. You have a baby. It's your baby. You got to take care of your baby. And so I would say don't let rejection get you down. That's just part of life. Read, read, and read. Don't.
Good literature.
I mean, no. Listen, that's good literature for you and good literature for me. It might be very different. So just keep reading and read outside of your genre. That will feed your art. It really will. Read outside of your race. You want to be able to reach people on several different levels. And so read, write, and just don't give up. If it's your passion, you shouldn't give up. And don't put a timeline on it, a time limit on it. Yeah.
And thank you, Dreamcatchers, for joining us for this segment of the Writers Haven show with the talented Mrs. Bernice McFadden. We will continue our segment of the 2018 National Book Club Conference, and we hope that you will join us. And until next time, catch fire on purpose.
All right, here we go. Go, okay, quick. Oh, yeah, yes. So much fun. Mwah. Yeah, Dad. We're getting so wet. Oh,
Everybody has a dream. Mine was to see the ocean. And with a little help, I made it.
This is the moment I knew. His future had no boundaries.
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org.
Hey, you.
Yeah, you. Getting that college education. What are you gonna do? Graduate and take some office job? Be like everybody else? Or will you dare do something different? Like be a teacher. You could be my teacher. You got the skills.
The smarts?
Yes, you. You could be the teacher I never forget. That'd be cool. Does that corporate job even have recess? What are you gonna make of yourself?
What are you gonna make of me?
Did you know dragging chains can spark a wildfire?
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Open up your books to page 360.
Did you just look at your phone while you was in class? You played yourself.
Talking about inspirational quotes.
You gotta believe in yourself. Don't ever play yourself. The key is to make it, so make it.
Louise, can you give me an example of an inspirational quote?
Don't play yourself. The key is to make it.
And who said that?
I did. Now that's a major key alert.
Learn the real major keys to getting to college at getschool.com.
Green hat. Red hat. Oops. Red shirt. Blue shirt. Yellow shirt. Oops. Yellow pants. Red pants. Green pants. Oops.
Don't wait. Communicate. Make your emergency plan today.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.